this would be a two-parter. I have no idea how to do a very good accent in English. I speak. Apparently, I speak the English, the America version. I can't really do I have to have a gin gimlet and like a proper fucking it's got to be a punch in the nuts or something. I don't know to speak with that accent. But we'll talk about drugs, sobriety, and how many people, like what the world looks like when there's sober people running it. And then to define that, though, we have to really see it for what it is. If you guys can't see me, let me turn on the light in a second. You have to first say how many people are on drugs percentage wise. How many people running things are on drugs? You'd have to define what drugs are: illicit, illegal, legal. Then we have to get to substances and how it's affecting people's, whether or not it's improving how their brain functions or it's destroying it. Um, and then we'd have to define what sobriety is. See, maybe I'm a little too scientific for people here, but you gotta make a few assessments of the qualifiers for how you're defining a an experiment. And this is a thought experiment. Is much of everything that I do for people. I give you thought experiments that you might not have walked through before and considered. Because if you're a scientist, you have to be willing to not know the answer. You have to be willing to be wrong often. You have to be willing to not have a preconceived destination for where your thoughts go. So, built into most people is an idea of something. So, if I say people on drugs or sober people, well, you already don't know what I'm talking about because you probably are on drugs yourself, but you won't admit it because you don't know what the baseline for what the consideration is of what drugs are. For instance, if you eat food out of boxes, I guarantee you're on drugs. If you drink Coca-Cola and if you drink coffee in the morning, it's a drug. It's a chemical, and this has nothing to do with legal, illegal, or whatever. So there's so many things that people do, and if we just look at it from how many people are going to the doctor to get the drug. Now, that might help them because they're so out of balance chemically that it's offering them a solution to make them better people. But then again, sometimes people are addicted to substances, illegal, legal, or not, or from a doctor, or from their own prescription OTC, over the counter, weed, beer, whatever else they're doing. And I think we need to start, and most people don't consider food a drug, but most people, I would say, and to go a little deeper in this, most people are fully addicted to food. They have no idea how addicted they are to shoveling things into their mouth. And this could be healthy things. I wouldn't call necessarily a tomato, even though we can go and say there's chemicals in it, etc., etc., and there are different chemicals if it is really fully, truthfully organic, or if it's genetically modified and sprayed with things. That's a second tier of consideration of how many chemicals and substances people are consuming to to act and be the way they are and think the way they think, which is seemingly the most important thing. So, are people better off? Should more people be on drugs? And how many people? If you look at the statistics right now, what I've looked up, what I've seen, I don't know how verifiable any of this is, but nearly 50% of people, nearly 50% of people ingest pharmaceuticals that are prescribed by their doctor on a regular basis. And on a regular basis, it would mean in the last 30 days someone's done a doctor prescribed drug. So half of the people you meet. Now, they could be for muscle relaxers. They could be things that are, and you go, okay, that's the, you know, they hurt their back. Okay, I get it. You could say, oh no, that's a type of a heavy dose of aspirin to get rid of some pain. You could say, oh no, they had a lesion and it's a antibacterial something. Yes, we can get into that as well. But nonetheless, overall, psyche adjusting psychological substances. There's quite a number of people that you walk by on a regular basis that are, you say, under the influence. Certainly. And what does the, see, this is how far you have to go when you want to be a scientist. You want to think critically. You want to analyze. You want to be analytical. You have to ask so many questions that it will break your brain to figure out how to narrate and narrate this idea that, like, you have to go through all of these variables. There's so many that it's the reason when you look at theoretical physicists using 20 chalkboards back in the 60s, and they're writing all over it, and you see these black and white pictures, and there's a theoretical physicists and scientists, and they're trying to come up with a minus b squared times this, and that's what's going on, even to figure out the simplest thing. So we have to ask, how many people, what is baseline? What does a baseline normal human look like? I don't think you've seen one. I don't think you could interact with one. It hardly exists. Everybody is persuaded. Let's start here. You think television isn't a drug? Oh, it is literally listed as a drug. What it's doing, just because you don't eat it doesn't mean it's not a drug. You don't think music is a drug? Of course it is. So music has the same effect that drugs do. So these influences, everyone is under the influence. Now, specifically speaking about drug use, meaning a pill or smoking some weed or drinking a beer or something, or and again, illegal pharmaceutical, plant life, whatever. People, how far are they off baseline reality? What does an uninhibited, feral, raw human being look like, amount to, and how, and what does their mind look like, and how do they interact and respond to nature, and then whatever we call everything else, which is influence. This is why, let me just go one step deeper in this. There's not too much organic reality anywhere. Everything has been touched, and there's sprinkling and of ideas and tentacles of humans putting their ideas, whether through technology, whether through language, whether through music, whether through everywhere. There's nowhere you can go that something hasn't been influenced, that you can find an uninhibited human. It's not going to happen. But the idea here is, if we're starting, what could be most considered baseline? What would a normal human look like, and how do people that consider that? And here's a furthering question. This is how difficult it is to even pose this question about people that are on drugs, do drugs, or sobriety, and who's running the world, and are they on drugs? What are they? And the people are judging people for their afflictions and drug use, and versus their own, which they can't even see. Then you put blinders on. It's a whole litany of different uppers and downers and this and that everybody's doing. And so what does the normal human look like, and who's observing it? Scientists are not undrugged themselves. They don't have the preconceived notions of how the world functions, nor are they without expectations of a result within any experiment. So we're already off to everything is biased. You can't have a practical, unbiased experiment just because you got so 10 other people did this and they came up with similar results. Yeah, but people miss so much. How you've given them the experiment, you've given them the expectations were, you've given them what you came up with, you're paying them. People aren't just out there doing experiments. There's so many things that influence what's going in. This gets into like why people say the world is just made of magic and thoughts. The world is this is the quantum theory of reality, quantum mechanics. It's very unexplainable and confusing because the point is that everything becomes mental. It becomes a metaverse. That the influence of your mind and the influence of what you consider a nocebo or a placebo effect it maintains so much reality over what you think is physical, because the fact that nocebo and placebo and environmental aspects and influences override at any point in time, and you can have spooky action at a distance and all of these crazy things that occur in the world. The fact that those happen even more, enough where it's accounted for, disproves everything that we consider physical reality. It has to, because then it says, well, the physical reality just tends to go through a set of occurrences that this equals that and karma exists. That gets thrown out the window, because how many times does the placebo effect work? How many times does the mind override everything? How many times have things happen that are so far out of bounds of what you consider a linear, logical progression of expectations within the scientific community, within your own life? So what seems to trump all of that? Mentalism, the mind, the meta realm, whatever that is, seems to control way more than you could ever expect. Just because you're used to things and reality is so concrete, is right there, and we're dealing with it. The concretedness, the physicality of this does not make the mind made this. You had to first conceive of the things that you have now to have obtained them in physical form. If someone didn't think about building a car, it wouldn't exist. The mind comes first before the physical object always. And then the confusion happens where people see the physical objects and they say, well, that's influencing the way that I think. Yes, but where did the things come from that you're interacting with? Firstly and foremostly, without question, and there's no argument here, that what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first? The thought. We can't explain where the thought comes from, but the thought manifested the things that you see in front of you. That's the only logical conclusion. So the influence of the substances around us, and I know we've gone up many different directions here, but the where is the sober person? Where is the sober mind? Where is the influence? Who needs to be sober? What is sober? Nobody can define sobriety because they're already coming from a point of non-sobriety themselves. They don't. I had somebody tell me as they're sitting there smoking down a fucking Newport, drinking a coffee, eating a tuna fish sandwich with cheese on it and white bread, telling me that because I had a drink that I was not sober, and they were a psychological, they could evaluate psyche and but they were coming from a place. It's like trying to argue with a child or somebody that's very inebriated on any substance, and I'm sitting there like, between the two of us, if we had a reasonable outside source of someone observing either one of us and how our mind functions, there's no way you're heading this game. There's no way you win. There's no way that you're, but yet, from a standpoint of, we have the people running around the crazy, the insane asylum, this world of clowns and idiots that are exclaiming they're sober and righteous. And it's just not true. What up, Yadaku? What are you doing? Your chemical is spices. Yes, let the you have to let the spice melange. Was it the spice melange? Isn't that the movie that just just redid that? Dune. What is the spice? What is the soma? The spice? It's different for everybody. Some people are spiced by music. Some people are spiced by logical conversation. Some people get off on good conversation. Some people are spiced by touching something or eating some people, chefs, anything. Some people like just the immediate, how is it that the whatever it is, from the emotion you get from eating and the flavor and everything, that's no different than taking a gram of pure molecule of MDMA. You know what I'm saying? There's no difference in the larger idea that, like, well, you could choose to spend $100 a day on eating all this different food and think you're getting all of these different wonderful experiences, ups and downs, and serotonin, serotonin, and all of these different. That's going to happen any way you look at it. Go out and stare at the sunshine. It's going to happen. Then you get no sunshine, and go ahead. And you go through all of these different things, no matter what it is, and you're going to have different chemical releases in your system. Go sit in a cave, and go. I'm just myself, and do all the meditation, and don't masturbate. Don't have any highs. You won't have any lows, and the same thing will happen as what happened in Siddhartha. The same thing that the Godhead did. The same thing that always occurs. There's an up and down. There's a sin in the world, and that doesn't change, and it's not going to. However, the point that I'm trying to get at is the people that are observing and the people that are qualifying, they are just as out of their gourd. They're just as influenced by the world and completely subject to the substances and influences of their past and their ideas of how things could be, should be, and have been, that they have no basis to stand on. They have no foundation of saying this is the direct reality, this is the truth, this is the only thing, because their experiential world was already wildly influenced by everything else. Well, check it out, y'all. As I'm talking about substance here, that is the end of my drink, and I'm gonna go grab grab some wine or something from the store. I don't really want to go outside because it's cold, but I do also want a beverage. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the conversation with you guys, and what I have to do now is just remind you all that energy that I give out here. If you want to help me continue that, you can donate to me. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. It's in the description box beneath. My name is TsarXen. I mean, my name is Zen-Atman, but in the description box, you can donate some dollars. And if you have some, cool, that's great. And I appreciate it. And but I do want to dip right now, and I'll come back on for a part 2. And we'll have some fun. Play some music, talk some mess. Maybe we'll play some games. Maybe we'll play Cards Against Humanity. Who knows? And if you have time, go get yourself a beverage or whatever your substance of choice is. Or if your substance of choice is meditation and staring at a wall, have that. That's something too. Use your mind, whatever it is. Empty, release your mind, let your mind be free, go wander. I'm going to go wander and grab a beverage. And remember, stay well, do weird things. Your life is more important than anybody else's because, well, that's your experience. I can't experience your experience for you. And if you're having a good time, share that with others if you know how to and you can. And in my case, that's financially, so I can have this on and entertain y'all and put this roof over my head and get myself another beverage. Cheers. Good to see everybody. We'll be back for round 2, maybe about 45 minutes. Good to see you, Eriku. Bye.